Welcome everyone to episode 30 of Future Strong. My name's Nikki Garchea and I'm the co-founder of Capfinity. And Capfinity support Gen Z in recruitment and development. I'm the co-host of this fun show. We're so excited to have our guests from Lime Connect today. But before we get started on discussing Lime Connect with them, I'll hand to Lindsay Pollock.
Nikki, thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourselves in the chat and let us know where you are watching from today. We love to see everybody arrive and welcome you. My name is Lindsay Pollock. I am a career and workplace consultant and speaker. I am the author of 4 books. My latest is Recalculating, Navigate Your Career Through the Changing World of Work. And I am a proud ambassador and partner for Capfinity. We are so delighted to welcome you today. Nikki, episode 30. Can you believe that we're at episode 30?
I know. It's gone very quick.
Episode 30 today is featuring an organization that I've known about and had the honor of working with in the past. They've also inspired us, I believe it was Rene this morning, to blur ourselves. So this is our first fully blurred episode. In the background, all of us have blurriness and we feel very elegant today. But before we go into our questions, I'd like to just welcome a couple people and then we'll welcome our guests. We've got our good friend, Fred Burke. Welcome, Fred, watching from Cape Cod. Trudy Steinfeld, another partner of Capfinity in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We've got Jordan in Winchester, Virginia. Maria Stein, welcome from East Lansing, Michigan. And we've got Maura Quinn in a very balmy 50-degree Boston. Dan O'Neill from New York City, and we've got Alyssa from New Jersey. Before we get to more welcomes, I did want to introduce our esteemed guests, Susan Lang and Rene Forsyth of Lime Connect. Susan, could you go first, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about Lime Connect?
I'd be happy to. And Lindsay, Nikki, thank you both for having us on this morning. And good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are and joining us from. My name is Susan Lang, and a visual description of myself for those of you who may be blind or low vision. I'm a middle-aged white woman. I am wearing a black top. I have dark blonde hair that's chin length, and I'm wearing black glasses. And I am the founding president and CEO of Lime Connect. We are a nonprofit organization focused on rebranding disability through achievement. And we have the largest network of high potential individuals, university students, and professionals in the world. And we founded Lime Connect back in 2006 because there was a gap in the disability talent space. The other organizations that were in the space were focused more on entry-level roles or just getting someone employment. And we realized that at the, again, university level, university graduate, no one was doing that. And when we talk about disability, that's very broad. We often think of people who might use a wheelchair or someone who's blind or someone who's deaf. The legal definition of disability is that it's a condition that impacts one or more daily activities. The interesting thing is the large majority of disabilities are non-visible. So many of you who are joining us today may know that you have a disability, have a family member with a disability, may have a condition that you don't realize is a disability. So on campus, about 20% of students today have disabilities. 90% of those are non-visible. So what happens is if you're walking down the sidewalk, I run into the 3 of you, we're all women, high five, very easy. When you have a disability, you don't know, and it can be extremely intimidating. So what we found was that the large majority of students were going home and working for a friend of the family or something. They also might have stayed in academia because that had become a safe place. So we wanted to broker that supply and demand of talent, and that's what we did through Lime. Again, 20% of disabilities on campus. When you talk about the workplace, 30% of employees in the workplace have disabilities. And that can be anything from a medical condition to learning disabilities, dyslexia, dysgraphia, attention issues. And the fastest growing segment of disability is mental health. Anxiety and depression are huge right now. And so all of these things encompass disability, and people don't always think about that. So at Lyme Connect, we're very focused on attracting, preparing, and connecting, again, high potential disabled individuals for scholarships, leadership programs, internships, and full-time careers with the world's greatest corporations. We give them the tools, the self-confidence, the community, and the connections to achieve their dreams. And then on the flip side, we support corporations in not only recruiting, but also in onboarding, in developing and retaining all of their employees with disabilities. And you'll notice that we use the word disabled interchangeably with the word disability. We get that from our community. That is the way people are preferring to be referred to. And so that's the way we use our language. We split between the two. So thank you. That's a little bit about Lyme Connect and a little bit about our founding.
Thank you so much for all of that education. I think there's a lot of fear among people of what to say or how to say it, what terminology to use. So I really appreciate your educating. I already have a page of notes. Renee, welcome. I also wanted to welcome Roseanne from New Mexico. Hi, Kelly. Kelly Smith from Binghamton University in upstate New York. Renee, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here with all of you. My name is Rene Forsyth. I'm the Director of Professional Development for Lyme Connect, and I joined Lyme just over 6 years ago. Prior to that, I worked in different human resources roles with heavy recruiting, and prior to that, worked in higher education. So this role allowed me to really combine those two loves and experiences. And a lot of what I do, among the things that Susan talked about in terms of training and development, is also work very closely with our university students through coaching and development and training. And one of the programs that we have is our fellowship program, which is for rising juniors. And I work very closely with our fellows throughout the years as they're navigating this career search and this transition from the university into the workplace. So I forgot my visual description. Let me go back to that. I am a white female with dark brown hair, and I am wearing a dark green shirt. And it's great to be here.
Thanks so much, Renee. Lindsay and I thought that we would learn from you both and do visual descriptions as well, but we wanted Susan to go first so we could learn from the expert in the field. So before I ask my first question, I will give my visual description and Lindsay will give hers. So I am also a middle-aged female with a blonde shoulder-length hair, also with glasses on, and I'm a white female and I am wearing a stripy shirt today. Lindsay.
Thank you, Nikki. I am also a white female with long, highlighted, lots of different colored hair, depending on what day it is. I'm also wearing glasses and I'm wearing a white shirt and a pink necklace. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great. And every time we speak to you, we learn something new. So we wanted to make sure we implemented that today. One of the things we wanted to ask you both is you've mentioned kind of how you both got involved with Lyme Connect, but how do career services, how do organizations get involved with you? We'd love to hear a little bit about the program.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to jump in there, Susan? I'll talk
Sure.
about career services.
Yeah. Sure.
So in terms of getting involved with us, we have engagement people on our team who are involved with engagement, both managing our university relationships and our corporate relationships. So Susan can talk a little bit about how to, reach out and engage with them. But this is just a really, particularly I'll talk about the college and the career centers, because I think those relationships are really important, especially for students with disabilities who are, have maybe had a lot of support throughout their academic careers and, maybe worked with disability services and received accommodations in the university, but then are now approaching going into the corporate workforce and don't know how those accommodations might transition with them. So college career centers are really critical in providing that support and coaching them throughout the process. I think from the statistics Susan shared, you realize if you're joining us as a career coach, that you probably are coaching someone who has a disability, given the pure numbers. So they may not be disclosing, they may not even know how to talk about this in terms of the workplace and what could be possible for them. So opening up that dialogue is really, really important. And we do training around that and the ways that you can coach and provide some support around for your students with disabilities. And I think some of the ways, if you can pair up and support disability services, have a liaison on career services who also maybe works in disability services, so that you can reach those students and start talking about what accommodations can look like, not only in the workplace, but also during the recruiting process. So we find sometimes that students are not even aware that they can ask for an accommodation. They're not asking for them, and then they're not successful in the recruiting process. So that's a key thing in helping them get to that actual goal. And then one of the things, the way we approach it at Lyme Connect, is we know that all of our network members have really unique strengths and skills that they've developed because they live with a disability, not despite living with a disability. So we really coach around that and encourage them to talk about those strengths and embrace them, because they are really unique skills and perspectives that they bring to the workplace. And as a coach, if you address all of these things, you can give them the confidence to go forward and really land the jobs that they're looking for. So it's a critical role in my mind, career services, and we work with all of our university partners on those top tips.
And how can someone become a university partner?
I'll jump in on that. I will suggest that anyone who's interested, whether you're a university disability services individual, career services, anyone on the corporate side, you can go to our website. I see that we've posted a link here in the chat to our education and disability resource page on our website. Tons of information there. You can click on Friends of Lyme and you can join Lyme Connect that way. If you have a disability, you can join the Lyme Network. If you don't, and you just like to be notified about different things we have going on, then join Friends by all means. We'd love that.
Thank you.
I know we have a lot of career services folks watching. I also want to welcome our colleague LaToya Hodge in Florida, and a friend of both Lyme Connect and Capfinity, Tom Wilson from New Jersey. Welcome. Tom is my original connection to Lyme, so we give Tom full props for making this event happen. Tom, we're glad to have you here. Susan, Rene talked about what career services can do to support people with disabilities. Can you talk on the corporate side? What can and what should corporate recruiters and learning and development folks do to support people with disabilities?
Absolutely. And I'm going to jump on the Tom bandwagon. Tom Wilson is our board chair emeritus, and we would not be here without him. So Tom, great to see you on. Thank you. And thanks for all that you've done for us over the years, including introducing us to Lindsay. So from a corporate perspective, I think that it's very important. There was a very large global company a few years ago who posted very proudly their new diversity statement, and their CEO actually posted it, and believe it or not, it did not include disability at all. This was not that long ago. It was like 4 years ago. And so I think one of the most important things corporations and in particular recruiting programs can do is to make disability a part of the full diversity conversation. And so that means specifically on the career side, highlighting, your interest and your value of individuals who are disabled on your career site, maybe posting some stories, having very clear, specific links there to Renee's point about accommodations during the recruitment process. Some of the best practices are to have an email address, to have maybe even a link that people can go to follow, and also having a phone number, because people use different means of communicating. And so to have different resources there is extremely important. I think also reviewing your process for recruitment. So a lot of companies now are using AI and are using, virtual interviews. That needs to be an accessible process. And often you may not realize when you're doing testing and that sort of thing that there can be issues with someone having a disability. They don't always know what those issues are up front. So again, making it very open, very clear about accommodations, highlighting stories, and showing someone as a role model within your company who's open about their disability, extremely important. When you can see yourself then you feel a connection and you feel that you can be a part of that group. And I think actually just having an awareness and openly speaking about disability on a regular basis, actively addressing the needs of all of your employees, all of that sends a message to disabled candidates that they're valued and will also be supported by your company when they become an employee as well.
Such brilliant advice, Susan. Thank you. And I'm just wondering, and Rene, you might want to jump in here, but could you also share some of the best practices that companies might want to draw on when they're thinking about attracting or retaining disabled individuals?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Susan touched on some of them, especially early on, but really a candidate is making a decision about your company from the minute they're looking at your website and applying. So making sure that those accommodation request process is very visible, and doing it at every touch point, because as Susan pointed out, as they progress throughout the process, they might realize, oh, I really need an accommodation at this point. So making it very visible and open, having diversity events focused on disability, where disabled candidates can meet other members of your employee base who also have disabilities, so they can understand that you are committed to this population and to seeing them succeed from an organizational standpoint. And then during the interview, making sure that if they've requested accommodation, that accommodation is in place, that your interviewers are trained and can understand that disability may present in certain ways in the interview process, or during the interview that may not be evident, because as we talked about, so many disabilities are not visible. And people may not openly talk about them. So understanding that there may be other factors at play, and always coming back to, are they able to do the job? Do they have the skills? Not making assumptions based on someone's disability that they won't be able to do the job. And then once you get them into your organization and you're looking to retain them, really promoting having a disability ERG, as Susan talked about. Sometimes disability is left out of the diversity conversation. So making sure there's a disability ERG that is supported by senior management, highlighting all of those efforts, so that people with disabilities have a community to join. And then the last thing I would say is really embracing the passions of your employees with disabilities. We've seen some wonderful successes with our different partners and our network members when they were really able to have a passion project at work. A lot of times it's around accessibility, and it's a win-win, because the organization is able to develop a new product or service that furthers their accessibility as an organization, and the individual feels, seen and respected and celebrated for the diverse perspective they bring. So that's a side one that I love to talk about.
Rene, can I follow up on that? I would love some specific examples. I know just from speaking with both of you, examples that, accessibility makes everything better. Everybody wants to go into the larger bathroom. Everybody uses the curb cuts in the sidewalk, whether you're a mom or a parent pushing a stroller or someone in a wheelchair. Can you maybe give an example or some examples of what you've heard? I'd also love an example of an awareness that an interviewer might have or could be taught that they wouldn't know. And also just a reminder to the audience that your questions are welcome as well. So just some specifics, Rene.
Sure. In terms of accessibility, I won't focus on any particular company, but captioning, we've seen captioning become such an important part of our virtual world that we've lived in for these last few years. And years back, we've seen some of our network members who've really led that effort they have the technical skills, which is a wonderful thing, but they also had hearing loss. And so this was really important to them to get captions in their particular company that they were working at. Susan, there's probably others. Do you have any that you're thinking of off the top of your head?
Well, there are some really cool projects that some of our network members are actually working on within their own companies about voice recognition. Mm-hmm. Think about it. If you have a speech impairment of some sort, if you stutter, if you have difficulty speaking, if you're using voice command, it's typically not recognized very well. And so these are some neat things that we've got network members working on today that are going to be able to benefit everybody.
And we've seen some of our blind and low vision network members doing some amazing things apps that will help blind individuals find their way around. So we could probably go on and on, but those are a few of our top examples. And then you had another question. Did you go ahead?
Yeah, did you have another question, Lindsay? I've got loads, so.
Oh, no, you go ahead, Nikki.
I was just going to ask about neurodiverse candidates. And one of the things that we're often guided to by the organisation we use at Capfinity is creating a level of transparency before interviewing candidates from a neurodiverse background. I personally believe a level of transparency for all candidates is probably really helpful, but not something necessarily as recruiters that we've always focused on. Sometimes it's been a bit like almost like, guess what I'm going to interview you on, because we feel like we might over prepare candidates. Have you got any thoughts on both neurodiversity, but also that dilemma around kind of preparing candidates, but that worry that recruiters might be kind of giving the game away? I love your thoughts on neurodiversity and preparation.
Well, one of our friends is Stephen Shore, and he wrote a book called Autism for Dummies. And he says, when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. I think often people put neurodiverse candidates who are on the spectrum into a bucket, and that's not always the case. We're very big on helping people to understand whether, when, and how to disclose their disability. So the onus is certainly on the company, on the recruiter, to sort of understand the nature of someone's disability if they know that disability and what may transpire during the interview. But it really is also on the candidate. They own the process. And so we do, again, on our website, a lot of resources around whether, when, and how to disclose. It's not a have to, it's a choice. But we always say, if you have a need for an accommodation and you don't make that request, you're setting yourself up to fail and you're setting the company up to fail. And companies want to provide accommodations for their employees. So Rene talked a little bit about ERGs and about internal groups. One of the neatest things about having an ERG and highlighting disability in the corporate space is that when we go back to the numbers, 30% of white collar employees today have a disability. That was the result of a study that we were a part of, that the Center for Talent Innovation came up with, now Coquel. If you're in your office and you look around, that means 1 in 3 people around you has a disability if you don't have one yourself. So the process for requesting an accommodation can be a little bit mystifying if you're working. And the more we do to highlight disability, the more we do to make it a normal part of the day to make a request, the more likely it is that you're going to have an existing employee request something that they can use to do their job better. They may not have even thought about using that in the workplace. So I think from a recruiting perspective specifically, it's great for interviewers to understand if they know someone has a specific type of disability, neurodiverse. I mean, often when you're interviewing someone who's on the spectrum, they don't have eye contact. There's some little things like that people need to understand, as opposed to just saying, well, they really weren't engaged. Yeah, I'm not going to move them forward. But if you have a visible disability and let's say someone's on the spectrum, it really does benefit them to go in and explain, I'm autistic. Here's what that means for me. So when we're talking, if I don't make eye contact, if I do this, if I don't do that, that's the reason I do it. And it really, what it does too is take the elephant in the room away, right? It relieves the tension and how do I address this? How do I treat this individual? And it makes it a very natural part of the conversation.
I so agree with that. I do a lot of public speaking training. It's the same if you have a stutter or if English is not your native language, to say that, it just takes that away and now it's no longer an issue. Susan, I'm really interested in these really practical tips for those of us, even not in an interview situation. I know Nikki and I learned today about giving a visual description. I will now do that. Do you have any other suggestions on how all of us can, be more aware of people with disabilities, be more supportive? What are some things that we can take away from this conversation? It's so valuable.
I think really to learn more about what disability really means. Everyone seems, well, excuse me, I'm going to take a step back. People tend to often think, again, of specific disabilities, often think of it as something that someone is burdened by. And that's not really the case. And so I think to better understand what disability is all about, and it's just one element of who an individual is. We're very big on that as well. It doesn't define someone. It's just like being a woman, being a musician, being, you know, a computer science expert. Having a disability is one element of who someone is, and to understand that and to make it more a part of daily life and daily, you know, goings on. For us, we're very used to that because it's our world. You know, I understand we're talking to people who may or may not be as familiar with disability, but it's also important too, I think, to when you're engaging with someone with a disability, to not immediately go and grab the door, to not immediately go and grab their wheelchair, to respect their space. There's some tips on our website as well on ways to engage, you know, to ask someone if they can use some help. You know, may I help you with that? And yes or no. The individual may say no, and they may say yes, but to let them sort of be your guide. But again, it sort of boils down to really, I think, education, understanding what disability, the elements can really be, and understanding, as we say too, many strengths and talents come with disability. Rene touched on this earlier. And there are a lot of people who are rock stars in large part because of what their disability gives to them.
One of the things that, yeah, Rene, if you've got anything else to add, otherwise I've got another question for your thoughts about the future, but any other actions?
The only thing I would add is that even us at Lyme Connect, and we are in this every day, I'm constantly learning. It's what I love about working in this space. So it's not, you know, a judgment if you don't know about disability. We are constantly learning and evolving, and we develop programming around that so that we can get deeper understanding of different disabilities. So just come with us on that journey, I guess. But it is really, you know, it's just a constant process to be open to learning.
Mm-hmm. It's such wise advice. As we think about 2022, and obviously the world has been evolving pretty fast in terms of how we all engage together, obviously a little bit of the last 18 months being virtual. What's on your mind at Lyme Connect as you go into kind of the next 12 months? What are some of your plans, and what are maybe some of the things we should be thinking about for those who might want to engage with you as well?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'll jump in first on that one. In our speaking with people and awareness of again, our 20,000 network members, mental health is a huge topic right now. And even if you don't have a diagnosed mental health condition, with COVID and with a lot of other things that are going on, anxiety and depression, again, are huge. So we're looking at doing even more to support network members and the general public who are living with anxiety, depression, again, mental health. I'm going to throw out too, we are very focused on intersectionality. So if you have different identities that you live with, and you're impacted by those identities, having a disability can also often be exacerbating. And so we have Voices of Lyme. I'm going to put a plug in. We've hosted series already for those who are LGBTQA+, part of that community, and disabled. We've hosted a session for veterans and disability. We have one coming up. It's on the 25th of February, hosted by our board member, Nancy Oduro. That's about being Black and disabled. And so these are important intersectionality sessions that really are, again, voices of people who live with these experiences. And we are encouraging anyone to go onto our website, register to join those, review them on the site that's been shared. And that is a really important element for us. And I want to give Rene a second before we have to close out.
Yes. So I am fascinated with the return to the office and what that is going to look like. We did some research with our own network and some of our partners about how returning to the office will impact individuals with disabilities. So that's something to consider as you're making your return to the office plans. Interesting for the population that we're talking about, the early career or university, some of these people have never worked in an office. They've had their internship experience be virtual. Maybe even their first job has been virtual for a period of time. We've all been virtual for so long. And so this is, that transition is a whole other host of concerns that they have, because they don't know what it's going to be like. They don't know what types of accommodations they will need or what to ask for. So we are keeping an eye on that. We're trying to provide information to our corporate partners about things to consider as they return to the office, as well as guidance to our network members about things to start thinking about as they go back in person.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both so much. I'm going to hand to Lindsay to do a quick summary, but I just want to thank you humbly for how much you've shared. I've learned so much from the interactions I've had with you. I hope people will visit the website, keep the education and learning happening, which you've really evoked on this session today. So thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for the 30 minutes that you've spent with us. Lindsay, what are the 3 takeaways?
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us. At the end of each episode, I like to give 3 highlights, and there is so much to talk about. Thank you to Susan Lang and Rene Forsyth of Lyme Connect. Number 1 is to learn the facts and know that they are evolving. We learned today that about 20% of students have a disability and 30% of employees, and the vast majority are non-visual, so you might not be aware that you yourself have a disability or those around you have a disability. So be open to learning. Number 2, those on campus, coach students to talk about and use the strengths that they have because of their disabilities, not despite their visibilities. And I think that aligns so beautifully with Capfinity's mission of being strengths focused. And number 3, on the corporate or organizational side, make sure that disability is part of the diversity conversation. We talked about intersectionality. We talked about making sure that there are success stories on your website about people with disabilities in your organization, and to make sure that accommodations that are available are clear, as well as contact information for somebody wanting to learn more about accommodations for disability. And I just want to finish with a comment you shared that was so powerful, that disability is always just one element of somebody's identity, and that's a really important reminder. So thank you for such an informative and interesting discussion. Nikki.
Thank you. So sadly, for the next episode, I will not be here, but we will have guest host Trudy Steinfeld stepping in with Lindsay. And also, I can see everyone knows Trudy. I mean, how can you not resist listening to that episode? And she will be speaking to current Vice President and Talent Acquisition Lead at Maximus, David Ong. So definitely one not to be missed. And we really looking forward to that episode. Thank you again, Susan and Rene from Lyme Connect. I really wish everyone who's listened in a great weekend, and I hope you've really enjoyed this great episode. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We enjoyed it too.